Thank you for tuning into the Electric Church Podcast. My name is Craig. I'm the founder and host of the Electric Church Podcast. And on this episode, I am joined by Mr. Michael Starry. Mike is the admin of a group called the Crow Wing County Cities for a Sanctuary City or something, or Sanctuary, Second Amendment Sanctuary. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling all over this. Basically, Mike is a gun rights guy. There is a bill that was passed in the House here in Minnesota. Two of them actually, called House File 8 and House File 9. These were passed in the House. They have yet to go through the Senate. And they are basically regarding red flag laws and transferring of guns, whether it be temporarily or ownership of. And I looked through the laws a little bit, and they're a little convoluted. I don't really like them. I tend to lean heavily into the property rights idea, although Second Amendment does get a little hairy to me because I think there should be some restrictions on exactly what kind of arms we have. I'm not sure if I want my neighbors to own a tank, etc. But anyways, Mike has a lot of very libertarian views, much like myself. So we talk House File 8 and 9 a little bit. We talk red flag laws, and we kind of talk libertarian philosophy a bit. So I had a great conversation with Mike here before the world started to go crazy with COVID-19. So this is the conversation I had with Mike. I believe it was March 15th. 2020. So here it is. Enjoy. And thank you again for listening. And please like and share this video on Facebook or whatever social media platform you prefer. Tell your friends. Get the word out about the Electric Church. All right. Thank you. And thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves and each other out there in this awkward, trying time we are in. Thank you for tuning in to the Electric Church Podcast. My name is Craig. I am the founder of the Electric Church Podcast. And joining me today, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, Michael Starry.
Mike.
Hi, man.
Nice to see you.
Likewise.
Glad you came in.
It's becoming a thing.
Right? Well, why don't you go ahead and kind of tell us why I invited you in here?
I don't really know. Clearly, it's my electric personality and stunning good looks.
Obviously.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we kind of met through some of the Second Amendment fight, and the libertarian mindset seems to be probably why I was invited along. Fighting for the Second Amendment sanctuary movement, or dedicated county movement, as we're calling it here in Crow Wing. And then you were gracious enough to offer your space up for us once, and we couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, no problem.
Now here we are.
Frankly, even if I didn't agree with you, I still would have let you come here.
I know. It is kind of a good thing.
I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's just kind of the way I operate personally. Like, I don't really give a crap what your politics are. As long as you're peaceful. You got every right to gather, and I'm glad to host for you.
I had that conversation with somebody the other day. They said, "Oh man, you really do kind of get this whole liberty thing and this constitutional deal because you just don't care." I'm like, "No, I don't. Why would I care?
Yeah.
You should have a differing viewpoint from me."
Yeah, absolutely. Try to convince me in what you think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the biggest thing. If you have a valid position, you should be willing to stand up and tell me your position.
Yeah.
It seems simple to me. Like, let's have the conversation.
Yeah.
And if all else, not to pull a Steven Crowder, change my mind, but change my mind.
Yeah.
I want to hear a valid point, and if nothing else, it makes me stronger in my position, because you might come to me with an issue that I've never looked at, or a viewpoint on it that I've never considered.
Absolutely.
I can strengthen my argument by listening to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Simple deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm perfectly willing to change my mind. I would like to think that I'm probably wrong about at least 40% of what I believe. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wrong about it.
I would hope I'm wrong most of the time. I tend,
Right, yeah.
tend to be a little on edge, so I hope I'm wrong. Dear God, somebody show me that I'm wrong.
Right? Yeah. I think, some of the difficulty is sometimes, like, you're not presented with an actual argument for what they think. It's just sort of, a lot of logical fallacies and stuff get thrown around, and it's just like, well, that's not very convincing.
A lot of hurt feelings and
Right.
and made up emotions.
Yeah.
The way I had that conversation with somebody the other day, there was a thing on Twitter about gun violence survivors, which, I mean, first off, gun violence is a stupid term. I've never seen a gun hurt anybody, so it's just violence survivors. But there's this whole movement on Twitter going on with gun violence survivors, and there's a ton of these people that are going, I was a victim of gun violence. My dad's cousin's brother's nephew's dog's former owner killed himself, and it hurt my feelings. Well, you're not a survivor of firearms-related violence. You're a survivor of a victim mentology. You know, I was like, that's not violence.
And I would imagine you're being a little hyperbolous with it.
Yeah. It's
Well, hey,
weird.
my brother was in a hunting accident.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say it in a mean way, but he has permanent brain damage.
Damn.
The quarter part of his vision is gone, so he can't see like right in front of his face.
Yikes.
And he still has steel shot in him.
Yeah.
Instead of lead shot because they were hunting duck.
Ducks. Yeah.
So yeah, he's got to wear a medical bracelet. He can't like get an MRI. He's got BBs in his brain that'll come flying out and
That could be a little intense.
possibly kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't have a problem telling you that he's a Trump supporter because he proudly wears the hat. My brother and I don't agree on everything.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But I mean, there you go. I mean, he doesn't go hunting. He's not a fan of guns. I don't think he owns any, but he's not going to go taking anybody's either.
Exactly.
If I was in a hunting accident, I probably wouldn't like guns. Go hunting either.
I do wonder about that. I mean, I've taken a shot to the back myself, so it was not quite as traumatizing probably as having them stuck in my brain. But I've been
he was in a coma for like 3 days.
So I got hit with birdshot in the back. So intentional, not an accident. This was an intentional situation, which is part of why I am staunchly pro Second Amendment now, because I was in a spot where I couldn't defend myself.
For
and
sure.
I vowed that wouldn't happen again.
Right.
So it won't happen again.
Right. Yeah.
You won't shoot me without getting shot back at this point. So
yeah. Damn. You can elaborate on that story if you want it all.
We were kind of walking through an abandoned or an empty lot, I guess it were, outside of Marietta, Georgia. And kind of out of nowhere, you have that moment where you hit the ground and you kind of hear a noise, but you're not really sure what happened, and you find yourself laying on the ground. I had a buddy grabbing me going, we got to go, we're getting shot at. And like, okay, cool. I just kind of figured at that moment that I was sort of tackled down, like maybe he must have covered me or something. We took off running, and then we kind of realized, like, geez, I hurt, and he's going, dude, your back is all bloody. I'm like, well, okay, keep going, and I don't know where we're at. We got to get somewhere. And we went to the doctors, and they're like, oh, yeah, man, you've been shot in the back with birdshot. And thankfully, it was birdshot, and he was far enough away that I didn't get, one of those nice 3-inch holes that just laid into me, but it was enough to stick a whole mess of BBs in my back. And it took until about 5 years ago for the last one to work itself out, which was pretty cool. Yeah, that was exciting. But yeah, once you kind of realize, like, man, I've been shot. This sucks.
So there was nothing even provoking it.
No, it turned out this kid was about 17 years old. They'd had problems in this vicinity with people just kind of popping off shots at people. And they'd never caught anybody. They just knew that there were complaints that somebody was randomly shooting. And apparently that was the evening that he decided that he was going to randomly shoot at instead of toward or around somebody. So, and I was the lucky test case. So, and on the bright side, my getting shot actually led to an investigation that did catch him.
Sure.
17 years old, couldn't own a gun, had all kinds of issues in his life, and he ended up having one anyway. I don't know whatever happened to him. I never cared. I'm like, I just wanted out. Yeah. I don't need to be here. This isn't where I'm from. I'm from Minnesota. I don't need to be in Georgia getting shot at, so I'm good. You guys sort your own crap out. The last I'd heard, I think they went to he ended up in some mental health treatment facility and kind of got his stuff sorted out as well as they could. So,
Yeah.
you know, theoretically, he's not shot anybody else, and, you know, life is good. Maybe he learned something out of it. I learned that I can take a bullet. So,
Or at least birdshot from far enough away.
Got that going for me,
Right.
which is kind of nice.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an exciting time in my life. So, you know, but that whole era of my life was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
There's a whole run from the mid 80s until about 96 that was really, really fun and interesting and exciting. So
Any other stories you want to elaborate on? Or?
that's about the time I started hitchhiking around the country. So I left school at 16. I'd had enough, and I did not get along with my parental unit. And given the climate in northern Minnesota at the time, you didn't get a lot of options to go live with the other parental unit. It was just kind of the way things were. So I was just off on my own. Started hitchhiking around and did all the usual stuff. You know, I was a dirty punk rock kid, but I went to all the Grateful Dead tour, and which was always a bizarre deal to hang out with a bunch of punk rockers, the Wharf Rats, you know, all these like crazy punk rockers at Dead shows. And yeah, I just traveled around the country and saw, I've been all 50 states and hitchhiked through Canada and down into Central America. And
No shit.
yeah, man, I had a really fun run.
I bet.
Played played music, a number of different bands. I was out in California playing in a touring band, and yeah, it was fun. Just stuff to do because you had nothing else.
You could have been an Instagram star.
I know.
If it would have existed back then.
Yeah,
Like just traveling and putting your stuff on Instagram, that would have been huge.
Yeah, I always get that too. You need to write it all down in a book, and I used to
Yeah.
actually keep notebooks everywhere. There was a point in time where I modeled myself after Henry Rollins. He had this mentality of write everything down.
Oh yeah.
So I did for years and years and years, and then at one point I pissed my mother off because she was kind of storing everything.
Yeah.
And I'd pissed my mom off, and she decided that I was no longer part of the family, which meant none of my stuff needed to survive. So I had years of notebooks and ramblings and rantings just kind of disappeared by the wayside.
Oh.
So yeah, you're like, oh, that's a bummer. Because now when people ask about it, you're like, okay, I remember this instance somewhere between 89 and 93, and I think it was summer. Crap, if I had my notebook, because it would have had a date, and you could time frame everything. So that's the hard part. You did a lot of fun stuff, but it's hard to keep it all in that timeline. You go, well, it was somewhere between the mid 80s and the mid 90s.
Oh man,
narrowed it right down.
Right.
I've had people contact me about things where they like hear a story from me, through a grapevine or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh no, dude, that wasn't 94. That was 91." You're like, "Really? Dang. Okay. Huh." So what happened in 91? Oh, that was the story that you told about 86. Ah, crap. So I was close. You don't keep a lot of time and a lot of calendar when you're hitchhiking around the country.
Right.
It's just, well, it's dark, it's time for sleep, it's light, it's time to get up, and it's cold, let's go south.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah, I heard Henry Rollins on Joe Rogan once talking about how he logs the records that he listens to.
Mm-hmm. Every single one. The guy, politically, we don't necessarily see eye to eye, but having grown up in the punk rock scene, I've got a lot of mutual respect for a guy that just kind of went, look, I'm a fanboy. I'm a groupie that got in to be the singer of a band. And he did his thing and just logged everything.
Yeah.
He logged his workouts, and I mean, just good Lord.
It was a very interesting evolution, I think, considering he was in a band called Black Flag, which takes its name from anarchy. Mm-hmm. And now he's
ultra-lib.
Ultra-lib, yeah. That's an interesting evolution for sure.
It doesn't surprise me, though. His mom she was a peacenik. She was a full-on hippie. He grew up listening to the Mamas and the Papas and the Carpenters and stuff.
So the punk anarchy thing was rebellious against it.
I think so,
for sure.
Yeah.
So as it was the weightlifting and all that, was a way to be a bro and like piss mom off.
I think so. And his spoken words are amazing. I love even when he gets on his liberal rants. Like he's just so well spoken, and he's a very articulate human being.
Mm-hmm.
He's really cool.
Absolutely.
It doesn't surprise me that you kind of come back to your roots.
Mm-hmm.
I've done the same thing myself. My dad was a bluegrass guy, and that side of the family were bluegrass. My mom was a folk musician on the side, in northern Minnesota. And when you're a kid, all you want to do is get the heck out of here. You don't want to be in Crosby and Brainerd and Emily because this place sucks and it's miserable. And now in my 40s, I'm like, man, I can't imagine being anywhere other than further north.
Right. Right.
Like, so you kind of come back to your roots once you make make peace with where those roots are.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me with Hank at all.
For sure.
I still want to arm wrestle him once just to see.
I
used to want to
think
punch
you would
Danzig.
be sorely disappointed.
No, I always wanted to punch Glenn Danzig in the mouth.
Have you seen that video, I take it?
No, I heard about it. I refused to watch it because the guy that finally did it, I mean, he waits until Glenn's like 60 and fat and looks like Elvis on a toilet with a donut. So it's like, nah.
And it kind of sucker punches him, too.
Yeah, it's like, that's not fair.
He's not totally right there
You
with
could have
him.
got the guy when he was in his prime and he was pretty burly, then that would have been impressive. But I think that with Rollins too, like, yeah, I know the odds are, especially given where, the DC scene was really tough and it was kind of balls out and he had to do a lot of brawling to keep up with it, that even to this day he could probably still take it out on me pretty badly. But it just one time, like, let's just try this, Hank. I want to see if I can arm wrestle you. I don't know if I'd want to punch him, but I'd try to arm wrestle him.
All right. Do you want to talk about House File 8 and House File 9 at all?
No, but I will anyway.
Well, that's why I posed it as a question. Yep. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
I think it's an important thing. Red flag gun confiscations or high risk or extreme protection order, whatever fancy words they put to it. It's red flag gun confiscations and universal background checks. The misnomer, obviously, of universal background checks is they're not just gun sales, they're gun transfers. That's a dangerous precedent to set. So I'm a big fan of fighting against dangerous precedents. I'm a big fan of fighting against anything that doesn't follow the Constitution. In order to do transfers, universal background checks require a registry. There's no way to enforce it otherwise. You can't say, well, you sold this gun illegally. Well, how do you know? Well, we have this registry that shows where it was last registered to. That's the only way to make it enforceable. So automatically, I'm out. That's a bad idea. Government knowing what I own, when I bought it, how much I paid for it, how much ammo I bought for it's a bad scene. But then even leading to the transfers, any outside of immediate family member, mom to son, brother to sister, living together, everything else is pretty much requires a background check, which is crazy talk. Antiquated guns, collector's items guns, loaning a gun to somebody. I have to go get a background check, and then you have to have a background check to give the gun back to me, and it just gets to be.
So if a father of a daughter wanted to give a gun to his son-in-law, he would have to.
The son-in-law is not immediate family, so he would have to have a background check performed on him. So, which is, think about that too. So if the son has been married to the daughter, the son-in-law has been married to the daughter for 20 years. Dad's known that kid.
Let's say 10 years.
Yeah, he's known him since he was a young man. He knows they're all good, and some parents do background checks on their children's stuff. They know he's good. Still got to get that background check, even if it's a gift. That's a transfer. So
he can't literally put it in a case and get it wrapped and give it to him for no.
It's got to go through an FFL. You got to go to the police department or the gun store and go, okay, well, I want to give Jim here this gun, and I want it to be a surprise, but I can't because I got to do Form 4473, and it's a fiasco. And even that, the background check part of it, it's really not fail-safe anyway. It's about 70% of initial denials and delays on the gun.
That's what I was going to ask. Check. How long would a case take?
Well, first off, most times that people are denied, it's an accident. It shouldn't have been. It was either a typo on 4473 or something that was illegible, or a name similarity. So I'm Michael Starry. I'm good to go. But there's a Michael Starry in California. He's in California, so he's almost prohibited anyway just because he's there. But he has a felony. I don't have a felony. I go to get a gun. They go, oh, you've been denied. Well, why? We had this felony. Well, I don't have a felony. Well, Michael Starry has a felony. He was born in October of 19, whatever. And you go, well, what the hell? And then after appealing it, they go, sorry about that.
Different guy.
Yeah, that was the other Michael Starry. So you can get yours. Go in and do your background check again. Well, they don't make a note of that in the federal system until about the third time, and then it becomes a delay. So instead of getting denied and you've appealed it, now it becomes a delay, which can take 72 hours. If it does take 3 days, then they automatically have to give you the firearm, because then they know it's a clerical error. But that's typically what happens in those situations. You appeal it, you fight it, they go, oh, sorry about that, 3 times. Okay, great. Now it's a delay. And you just walk in knowing that, like, I'm going to go in there, this is going to be a problem, fill out your crap. I'll see you guys in 3 days. You come back in 3 days, they go, yeah, here's your gun. And about 2 days after that, they get their little paperwork. You get a thing in the mail that says, yeah, you were good. Sorry about that. That was that other dude out in California. You go, okay, cool. So the background check itself is already pretty wonky. States aren't always fulfilling their obligations. We know that the Army and the Air Force are not, because we've seen that in some of the shootings where people were legally allowed to get the gun even though they shouldn't have been because the Army didn't file their dishonorable discharge papers or their domestic abuse papers or whatever it was. So meanwhile, we're going to then say, I can't loan you a gun to go hunting with me because we're not going to be an eye shot of each other. You know? So we're going to need a transfer because we're going to hunt together on the same property, but we're not going to hunt together. So
I mean, if we're hunting for grouse, I would hope we're not.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather not be right on top of you here. So and it's
kind of help from shooting each other. Actually, if we aren't in eyesight of each other.
Pull a Dick Cheney and get shot in the face. So it's and I get a little grief for that when I use that position on this because the bill itself doesn't say specifically that, but it's open-ended enough that if you are hunting in a party. DNR defines a hunting party as a group of people hunting together, But then the law says you're no longer on the same property. If you're on county land, where does that leave you?
Right.
I'm not hunting on my land, so that kind of negates the little safeguard they have in their law. So if you're hunting on my property, theoretically out of eye shot might not matter. But if we're hunting on county land, we're not a hunting party on my property anymore. That gun has left my property, which means the transfer needs to be done again anyway. So, there's so many little nuances to this law that can get buried and hidden. It sounds paranoid, but we've done this for so long. We've fought gun control for so long, and the great slippery slope that everybody says is fake.
It's just getting. We seem to be an awfully a long way down that slope.
Yeah,
it seems to be a very long, slow, and there's an ultimate bottom.
And that's where I had the council meetings the other day where it's due process matters. These things are really important to me.
Absolutely.
They should be important to everybody. For reasons I can't quite wrap my brain around, they're just not. And it's remarkable to me how little liberty matters, how little freedom matters, how little the process really matters to people. All they want to do is feel safe. They want to feel like something's been done. But by the same token, the people that are pushing gun control right now because it's doing something to make them feel good are the same ones that screamed bloody murder when Bush pushed the Patriot Act down our throat. Do you do something to make you feel safer? So which is it? Do you want the government to do something to make you feel safer, or do you not? Because I don't. I don't need the government to make me feel safe.
Yeah. I would say one of those great ironies is if they want the government to do something about guns to make them feel safer, it's kind of ironic. I think people who have guns feel pretty freaking safe.
Yeah, I've never not felt safer on a gun. So.
I don't own any guns any longer. I lost them all in a boating accident, which is very unfortunate.
It's tragic.
I never didn't feel safe anywhere that I was.
Yeah.
And I mean,
chalk it up to self-defense, though. I know people that take self-defense classes, and they simply to actually be safe. Well, are you in a situation where you need to use that? And most of them will tell you, no. I've never been in a position where I needed to throw a punch at another person to feel safe.
No.
But they all feel really good knowing they could. Most gun owners are the same way.
Yeah.
We aren't typically in those positions. We definitely don't want to be. We don't seek them out, but it's nice knowing that if it comes down to it, by God, at least I have that option available to me. I'm getting older. I've had neck surgeries. I've had some rough moments in life. The body doesn't work as well as it used to. There was a point in time where I would throw down with anybody at any time, and it didn't worry me because I knew I was going to win. I'm not that guy anymore. The reality is you get older, you get slower, your vision goes a little bit. It's a lot harder to put up against some 20-year-old kid that's decided he's going to play the knockout game. You know, like, I'm not as fast as I used to be. I'm a pretty quick draw. And if you didn't manage to knock me out, you're probably going to lose a body part. You know, like, people put themselves in situations without knowing they've been put there. Life is weird, so I don't see the difference in, you know, the great equalizer, as they say on the women's side, particularly of the gun argument. It is the great equalizer. You're going to get the grief that it's sexist, but the reality is, my wife is 5'3" and 115 pounds. If a guy my size, 6'1", 250, decides he's taking it out on her, he's going to take it out on her.
Yeah.
If she's got a gun, that chance diminishes quite a bit. She's got something to equalize that force a little bit, you know, and she's kind of a hard ass, but even then, there's always, even in my spot, there are people bigger, faster, and stronger than me. And if they've decided for whatever reason they're coming for me, I want an equalizer, you know, other than a hope and a dream.
The fact that anybody would say that is sexist is mind-blowing to me. For two very obvious reasons. Number one, men overwhelmingly commit most violent crimes.
Yes.
Overwhelmingly. So to assume a man would be the one attacking a woman,
Yeah.
that's kind of generally what I mean, or just a man attacking anybody. Women just don't really commit violent crimes very often.
No.
And second of all, yeah, I mean women are just biologically not as strong as men.
Yeah, as a general rule.
I know some women that can absolutely kick my ass, but
Ooh,
they
yeah.
spend a lot more time at the gym than me too. You know, they work very hard to get that.
If they went to the gym once, they've spent way more time at the gym than me. Like, oh, you know where the gym is? Clearly, you're more physically fit than I am.
Yeah,
So.
and if somebody is going to be violent, they're definitely going to choose a target that they know isn't going to be very
Exactly.
good at fighting back.
I have that conversation a lot too. You'll get it with the anti-gun crowd that's screaming, you know, the red flag's going to lower gun homicides and it's going to lower this. And you go, okay, great. But everywhere that they've done these, the overall homicide has gone up or has stayed the same. So you go, well, great. So you decrease the amount of people shot, but the amount of people killed didn't change. So you're saying it's morally superior to be beaten to death, stabbed, hung, strangled to death, as long as it's not a gun. I don't care if you die. I don't care if you get murdered or commit suicide, just as long as you don't do it with a gun, because that would be a morally substandard way of going. Well, what an asinine argument. You know,
Absolutely.
it's frustrating. I mean, you know, you've seen this for the last few weeks. I've been doing this for years, fighting the good fight on the gun control thing. And I'm down at the Capitol doing my thing and fighting and writing letters and doing my deal. And now it's become very personal locally. So fighting for this movement, so I start getting a little frustrated with it because it's fun and it's an exciting fight, and I want to win, and I think we'll win and we'll get where we need to be. But it's also exhausting and tiresome, and you go, man, how many million ways can I have this argument and get this point across to people without losing my crap? You know, it's interesting.
Yeah, and like the fight's never really going to be over either. You know, that's the thing is it's like if you know, even if House File 8 and 9 fail this year, they're going to try something again next year. They're going to try something every legislation.
They've outright said it.
Yeah.
And Governor Walz himself said it. The House Democrats have said it. Even the House senators, Democrat senators have said it, that we will continue to push these forward. We'll continue to present these bills until we get them passed. Well, that's a scary proposition.
For sure.
You're threatening us.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's weird for them. It's so strange to me that the Democrats in Minnesota are following the lead of the national Democrats.
Yeah.
Because this is Minnesota. We have, a lot of hunting culture, a lot of rural areas where people like to just shoot at paper and cans for fun.
Yep.
It's a pastime. It's, I mean, I grew up in Randall, which is not far from Camp Ripley. So, I mean, I would just hear guns going off all the time. Big military guns. It was fun, frankly. I saw a lot of helicopters. Man, one of the coolest things I ever saw was a Huey, one of those double
nice
helicopters. And I saw a lot of those, but at one time I saw one carrying a tank underneath it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Giant net, like it was bringing it out into the middle of the woods somewhere or whatever, for
That's
training.
cool.
Yeah, that was really cool to watch that sucker. Like, yeah, I mean, it was about, mile away. The way the crow flies is where my parents, not even maybe half a mile from where the crow flies is from Camp Ripley.
That had to have
it was
been
right over
loud.
there. Oh, yeah.
My grandparents lived on the Deerwood Shortcut.
When the big guns go off, the house shakes.
We were on the Deerwood Shortcut, and when we were kids, you would hear Ripley. It's, as a kid, you just knew it was Fort Ripley, like whatever.
Camp Ripley.
Yeah, Camp Ripley. But I mean, we're 30 miles away.
Yeah.
Obviously, as the crow flies, a little bit closer. But I always thought that, like, wow, how loud is that right there?
Yeah, we were about 7 miles away from the shooting range. No, not even. We were about probably 3 miles away from the shooting range.
That's close enough to know what's happening.
yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, good stuff.
Geez, I got us off track there. What the heck were we talking about?
Happens. I don't know, guns, shooting,
guns in general. Oh yeah, so
crappy
the gun
laws.
culture. So I grew up in Randall, Minnesota. I went to gun safety training in my elementary school. Like that's where I took gun safety training, was in my elementary school. Mm-hmm. My gun safety instructor was my third grade teacher. Avid hunter.
Yeah.
Lifelong Democrat.
Yeah, lifelong gun owner.
Lifelong gun owner.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's just like what happened to that? How did the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota shift to just following the National Democrats, the DNC?
I wish I knew that. I talked to a lot of people in outstate Minnesota, to use a East Coast term, that are registered Democrats. They vote Democrat. It's kind of what they've always done. But even for them, you're like, wow, man, when's the last time this party really represented the farmer or the laborer truly?
Right.
I mean, it is, and it's a shame because I look back on, fondly at the mystique anyway of the JFK era Democrat.
Right.
JFK was amazing on the Second Amendment. He was a man that firmly believed, we need to have guns to protect against an overreaching government and, other creepy bad things. Like, where did that guy go? There's no place for him in the party. But then I also look at Abe Lincoln would be thrown out of the Republican Party.
Oh yeah,
that man would have no standing in this party right now. And both sides will tout their great leaders as who they look up to, but when the push comes to shove, that's not who either party is really doing, and they're not representing. I think that's the most disheartening part. I watch people that vote both sides, and you go, man, they're not really representing you, though. You're seriously just voting for them because you just always have, or you've vilified the other
blue,
side.
No matter who.
Yeah, which is the most
vote red, even if they're
ridiculous.
dead.
It's crazy. Like, you vilified the other side so bad that you have to vote for this one because the other side's so bad. And,
fear, the fear voting. Like every time here. So here's to touch back to what we were talking on at first, and how like make an argument for your point. Like every time somebody from red team or blue team is trying to convince me that I should, vote for their team in the presidential election that year, they never sell me on their candidate.
Yep.
They tell me how bad the other candidate is. Mm-hmm. And that's just it's never an argument that's going to work for me. I'm not going to vote out of fear.
Right.
I'm just not going to do it. Like every year or every 4 years, they have the chance to win my vote. Mm-hmm. It's totally a potential. I'm very much a swing voter. I end up being a third party voter because I'm not going to vote out of fear. And both sides like to use this lesser of two evils. And it's like, well, both sides use it. So it actually doesn't mean anything to me as a swing party voter because you're just painting both sides as evil. If you actually feel that way, why would you? I don't get that. But yeah, both sides use it, so it's absolutely meaningless to me. Like it's virtue signaling that I'm voting for the lesser of the two evils.
I'm better than you because I won't pick the really, really bad one. Just pretty bad one.
Oh, but the third party doesn't have a chance of winning.
The great circular debate.
Right.
They can't win. Well, why can't they win? Because they don't have enough
the
votes.
votes.
Well, why don't they have enough votes? Because they can't win.
Yeah,
We can run this circle all day long.
Yeah, you're not.
It's infuriating.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's amazing to me how Trump is really not a conservative.
Oh no.
And Bernie Sanders, for all his popularity isn't even in the Democratic Party.
Right.
And it's basically down to him and Joe. Tulsi is technically still in it.
Yeah.
And somehow the fact that she's attractive to swing voters like me means that the Democratic Party wants nothing to do with her as presidential candidate.
Yeah. That whole thing seems to come down to, I look at it like, how can we just control people?
Yeah.
If we really wanted you to have a voice, Bernie probably would have had a better showing the last election if we'd have cared about his voice. And people like Tulsi would be leading the polls right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan of Tulsi, naturally. I mean, she's far too left for me. I'm not a conservative either, but I just see certain things that I go, yeah, I'm out, man. I'm done. And good. She is a fantastic human being. And she seems like the kind of lady that I would just like to sit down and BS with because she seems highly intelligent. Mm-hmm. And I think she's got a pretty cool perspective on stuff. Foreign policy, either way, she's in a unique position amongst the people that were running to have been overseas and been fighting in the fight, and kind of it would be fun to have that conversation with her. And it's a shame that they haven't let her have that conversation.
Right.
As far left as she is in my perspective, she should be up there. Then they're changing the debate rules again. But we know this feeling. We went through the Ralph Nader days. We went through the Ross Perot days, the Gary Johnson in 2016. How far can we move that target to make it so your voice is never actually heard? But we can tell you that it was because, well, this lesser candidate got picked. I feel bad for Tulsi. Same way I felt bad for Bernie. Now, I don't want Bernie to win. I don't want him to come anywhere near the presidency. But he did kind of get screwed a little bit last year. Not time. Not as bad as everybody seems to think. He wasn't doing as well in the polls as they would revised history would tell you he was. Mm-hmm. But he did get shafted by the DNC and some of the shady doings. Tulsi's getting a taste of it now. The difference I see there is that Tulsi ain't going anywhere. She's willing to call them out on that, which is something that Sanders did not do. He caved, he buckled under, and then he comes back this year and acts like it never happened. To me, that's the sign of a sellout, which is a bummer because I thought he was a man of conviction, and I believe he is convicted to the Marxist philosophies that he has. Mm-hmm. But I think for that, there's something about it that just comes to me as a sellout. Like, man, you got shafted. You made a big deal out of getting shafted, and then you came back this year, did the exact damn thing.
Yeah.
You didn't learn, and two, well, where are your personal convictions, man? Why didn't you just run as an independent this time or as a socialist or whatever it is and just stand up to the system? Because I think he'd have probably done a lot better.
Well, because I think ultimately he's buying into that lesser of two evil arguments. And even though he's not a Democrat, he's willing to, this is my argument, that, like I say, Trump's not really a conservative. Mm-hmm. I think he drew in swing party or swing voters and non-voters.
Yep.
To basically hijacked the Republican Party to win the election. And they have a different process for choosing their candidate than the Democrats do. The Democrats have it set up so that ultimately the powers that be within their structured party get to determine who it is, despite how many votes and delegates people get.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So Bernie's trying to hijack the Democratic Party because he's not actually in the party. Yeah. And he doesn't align with most of their platform. So, I see them both as sort of hijacking a party to win an election, which in reality shows to me America's willingness to vote third party.
Exactly. And that's how I've looked at it, too. Like, wait a minute, this dude he's not a Democrat. He got on that bandwagon.
He's not.
He needed the finances, and I get that. That having the party backing is a good thing financially to run for president, but he is technically an outsider, and there was a lot of people I've spoken to that never even wanted to vote because they've always had that, well, all of the candidates both sides present suck. But Bernie comes along, and even some of the ones that are like, well, he's not really my bag, but I love the fact that he just kind of crashed the party. That got people motivated. So, it does. It sends that signal that, like, man, kind of an outsider can come in here and maybe third party their way to a victory. And Trump, to a lesser extent, I mean, it's a lifetime Democrat. decided he's a Republican. Everybody that voted for him tells you the same thing. Every single person I've ever met that voted for him didn't vote for him because he was a Republican. They all voted for him because he was going to drain the swamp. He was an outsider. He wasn't one of the insiders. So all of the people that say we like Bernie and we like Trump because he's not part of the political system are the same ones that are saying, but somebody that's not part of the political system can't win.
Right.
Well, what in the hell?
Yeah.
The cognitive dissonance is shocking to me. It's just the most bizarre thing in the world to me.
Yeah. I don't understand the logic at all either. Ultimately, like I say, a candidate has the chance to earn my vote.
Yeah.
And I would, even despite the fact that I policy-wise don't agree with a lot of Tulsi Gabbard, I would still ultimately vote for her. Just because of her. I mean, she's such, she's just great at talking, and she's got that experience. But I mean, she's willing to dialogue with the other side, and that to me goes so far. To not stand there and scream about millionaires and billionaires, and then like start editing out that millionaire part once you got that much in the bank.
Yep.
It's so very disingenuous, and it's like you're not going to get anywhere except firing up your base and getting them to vote. Once you're actually in office, how is this going to be an effective strategy?
Right.
Ultimately, like it's not an effective strategy for Trump ultimately, basically he's a jerk to everybody and he can't get anything done. Is anybody really surprised?
No. Although I'm okay with that too.
The less the government does, the better.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a gridlocked government, well, that's doing exactly what it should have done.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah,
which is glorious for me. But there are things that.
Well, there's something better than gridlock.
Yeah,
and that's reverse.
Exactly. Pull off a.
Pull it back.
Yeah, just
as far as I know, the
all.
last president, or well, I should say, the last administration to pass and sign legislation that lowered the budget was Calvin Coolidge.
50% reduction in the federal employee
50%.
base.
50%.
Yep.
Like
he's kind of my hero.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Silent Cal. Like that to me is incredible.
Yeah.
Like when people say you can't do it, it's like boom.
Yeah,
same thing with income. We can go without income tax.
There's where Trump missed a mark here on this coronavirus thing.
Well, there's no way even the Republicans started shooting that down as soon as he said it.
This is the sort of so I'm not an executive action sort of guy, but I am at the point now where if Trump wants to send a message and he wants to truly help the economy withstand this pandemic, whatever you want to,
it's technically a pandemic
overblown
now.
Fear thing, whatever you want to call it. He really
it's all of those things.
He could, yeah, exactly. It is all of those things. But he could have just gone, you know what? For the next 3 months, the next 6 months, we will have no federal income tax withholding. And he could have executive ordered that across the board. As much as the Fed sucks, the Fed does. Independent, supposedly, but they really would have to answer to the people and the president if they just said, look, we're done for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or whatever. Let the people keep their money, withstand this blow, and consequences be damned. One, it's going to boost him because in the long run, everybody's going to go, son of a gun, I'm sure making a lot more money than I was. I'm not used to making this much money.
And that's why it's never going to happen is because it will never go back.
Exactly.
It's the whole once the genie's out of the bottle,
Then guys like me look like a genius.
It's true, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, it's the same mentality. Like if you go and you talk to a financial planner or something like that, they're going to tell you to set up an automatic withdrawal so that $20 or whatever you can afford goes into this account, and you should have a Roth over here, and you should have a basic savings, and you take that money directly out, and here's what they'll tell you: you take it directly out of your paycheck, and you'll never notice.
Yeah,
and that's exactly how taxes work. That's income taxes. Is it takes out of your, and a lot of us absolutely look at gross, net, FICA. Where'd this money go?
Yep.
You know, but a lot of people don't,
No.
especially people that are on, you know, if they're getting in an automatic deposit.
Yep.
And man, I've seen people like literally just have a stack of envelopes. They haven't even opened it and looked at it.
Yeah, I don't think people...
months worth of pay, and they have no idea how much income tax they
Well, and I
paid.
think people can justify it. I can't justify theft. I just can't. It just doesn't work for me. But there's a huge faction of people in this country right now that really go, yeah, but get this, or this is a good thing for this small faction of people, so I'm okay with that. Like, man, how do you justify thousands of dollars in theft because it gave $20 in benefit to this guy?
Well, so make your argument why income tax is theft.
Well, first off, I'm not consenting to you taking my money. Secondly, where is my income tax going to? Mostly defense spending and some nonsense crap that goes on, and paying legislator salaries, which sucks in the first place. I would be relatively okay with an income tax, at least on a state level and possibly a federal level, if I got to control truly where that money goes.
Okay, so back up philosophically because I mean I'm in agreement with you, but like that's because we're philosophically simpatico on this, and our listeners might not necessarily get this. And so rather than me getting on my soapbox, there's a reason I have guests. so once again, like, try to explain this position. Like, okay, so let me just play devil's advocate. Okay. Well, I'm perfectly willing to, have this money go to the government because the government needs to operate, despite the fact that it's corrupt. I don't mind that this money comes out of my paycheck.
Right.
So
how did
why I don't understand why it's theft. I do, but I'm playing devil's advocate.
So I've encountered that argument, and usually the one that stumps everybody right off the bat is, how did we operate up until 1913?
Well, I know it's sales tax and corporate tax.
Or bonds, war bonds, that sort of a thing.
A lot of things,
Which is fantastic, and we provided the exact services government was supposed to provide. Foreign trade, national defense, and promote the general welfare. We've gone so far beyond that we've decided promote the general welfare means provide for welfare, corporate, personal, farm subsidies, whatever they might be. That's not their role, and I don't understand why we've gotten away from what their role is. It's pretty well laid out in the Constitution, but now you're taking my money to appease who? Which oligarch? Which special interest? Which lobby group? They don't have accountability to me. My federal government should have accountability, but again, we've got, 6% approval rating of Congress and a 93% re-election rate. So we're not holding them accountable because we're not accountable to ourselves. And now we're just hoping that somebody does something good with our money because we're not personally responsible for it. We're going to let the government steal that money and use it for these things like war that make no sense to me. I don't understand how provide for the national defense became bomb 7 to 9 countries every year that aren't anywhere near me and pose no threat to me.
With flying robots.
Yeah. I mean, how does that, my national defense, and I have friends that served, I have family that served, I have friends that have been through multiple different wars and conflicts, and I always hear the same thing. Well, they were over there fighting for your freedom. Well, why the hell is my freedom in an oil field? Why is it in a poppy field? My freedom is in my backyard.
Yeah.
So provide my national defense. And I'm okay with keeping a very small reserve unit at the ready in case, crap hits the fan, but I don't need 2.2 million soldiers active at any given point in time.
Yeah.
I just don't need that standing army. So, and then what do we have overseas? Military bases in nearly every country.
Oh, over 100.
Yeah. So why am I paying money to that area so that I can have the property, paying a bunch of soldiers that mostly are guarding a lot of nothing or, preparedness? And I get that some reason we got into this peacekeeper thing, but why? I don't need to keep the peace in Canada. I don't need to keep the peace in Nigeria. I need to keep the peace at home. And if I'm infuriated that you're stealing my money, and I'm infuriated that my kids are having to go overseas to guard a poppy field, I'm not very peaceful. You're not keeping domestic tranquility. You are keeping, I don't know, elections somewhere that are still rigged in another country,
Right, yeah.
at my tax dollar expense. Was it Rand Paul does his, the airing of grievances every year, and he was showing that last, just fantastic. If you've not checked it out, go to his Twitter feed at Christmas time because that's hilarious. Oh my goodness! But it's the $800,000 to some study about platypus sexuality or platypus sexual activity on cocaine. Like
It was Japanese quail.
that's what it was. Japanese quail. Yeah.
Sexual. Yeah.
Like on cocaine.
On cocaine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why am I paying for
these-
this? Why is my tax money going for this? That doesn't justify the crap load that I get from people. Well, it pays for your fire department too. No, it doesn't. Your income tax did not pay for your fire department. If they did, those guys wouldn't be on the corner with the boot every 2 months asking for your money.
What about the billionaires who should be paying 90% income tax?
Which is asinine.
Well,
why are we going to punish people for doing well?
Here's my argument all the time. Is it's really simple, like life, liberty, and property, right? Like
Yeah.
John Locke. We changed it to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
I should say Tom Jackson changed it to life, liberty, and pursuit of
Yeah.
happiness. I was wondering if he was worried about plagiarism.
I know, right?
Like what happened there. But it breaks down to this very simple concept that I think all liberals would start agreeing with you, right? Which is I own my body, right? I get to decide what I want to do
Right.
with my body, right? Now, there's an extension of that, and that's property. What I earn with my body is also mine.
Exactly.
And it really shouldn't matter if I make $2,000 a year or $2 billion a year. I somehow made that, whether it was with my hands or my mind and a giant, corporation, or just like me on a computer day
Right.
trading. It doesn't matter how I make that money. That money should be all mine. Because ultimately, I'm going to spend it.
Yeah.
There's no Scrooge McDucks in the world, like swimming in oceans of coins. That's
Right.
just not how money works.
That would be pretty fantastic to try, but I do agree. It's one of those things, and you hear that argument back on that. Well, they made those billions by exploiting their workers. Okay, did they exploit their workers, though? Can you show me a study that shows the majority of people at that company felt exploited?
Yeah.
Most of them are there voluntarily. You know
For
why?
sure.
Because they wanted to make money too.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the Elon Musks and the Bill Gateses of the world having that money, they wouldn't be able to generate a source of income for you.
Yeah.
I don't understand why there's this disconnect, and we always say that. I hear it constantly. Well, they only made that because they exploited workers. But how did they exploit them? Explain to me how they exploited
Yeah.
you voluntarily taking the job and agreeing to a pay scale. That's not exploitation. That's you making a personal decision with your personal property to generate labor for this guy.
Yeah.
How is that exploitation?
Yeah.
You didn't enslave me.
And granted, there's some times where it's like there's, jobs aren't equal,
Right.
like opportunities are not the same everywhere, but that's not the sort of thing that like a government can come in and regulate and fix.
Yeah, they sure-
If you live in a town of 500 people and the only job you can get is, at the coffee shop and
Yep.
you can't, you've been there for 4 years and the best raise you can get is 50 cents an hour. Like that's not, that's just, it's the way the local economy is.
Yeah.
And there's nothing the government can do to come in and regulate. If the government says, that now your boss has to pay $15 an hour and you just went from, $11.50 to $15 an hour, you're probably going to work a lot less hours.
Yep. They seem to be showing that.
You might end up without a job.
Yeah.
Because frankly, in a town of 500 people, if there's a coffee shop and you're making $11.50, you're probably doing okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is. Like just the economy isn't equal everywhere, and there's no way the government can regulate it to make it that.
No. $15 an hour here isn't. I mean, it's not great money, but it's somewhat livable. $15 an hour in LA, it's absolute crap.
Yeah.
But we're going to mandate $15, and then secondarily, one, I don't agree with the minimum wage, but two, why are you only getting minimum wage? Now I'm an uneducated person. I'm a high school dropout. I make substantially better than the minimum wage for one reason and one reason only, because I decided I was worth more than the minimum wage. I am not educated. I'm not smart. I work really freaking hard, and I put in the time and the effort because I realized as a person, I owed myself more than minimum wage. So I busted my balls, and I continue to bust my balls. I put in nearly 70 hours a week. I travel constantly. I make huge sacrifices. My family makes giant sacrifices for me to do something that I'm pretty good at, that I enjoy, that provides a really healthy living for my family, because I was willing to put forth the work because I knew we were worth it. And I watch these people that go, well, I've been at this dead-end job for 10 years. Well, then why are you so down on yourself, man?
What did
Buck
you?
up.
Yeah. Why did you stay there?
Exactly.
I mean,
do you not value your worth, your own personal worth, enough to seek more than that? And sometimes that means, and I did this when I came back from California in the 90s. I worked 3 full-time jobs. I was putting 120 hours a week in. They were $8 to $9 an hour jobs. But I knew that if I just kept plugging away, I could put a little money aside. And if I could put a little money aside, I could seek out another job that paid more, or I could take a different role. And I became a machinist because I learned. I learned to write code on CNC machines and robots because I just kept pushing. And I watched over guys' shoulders, and I saw what the code was doing. And I figured it out because I was worth more than pushing the green go button, or in the Bloomberg world, you just put the metal in the lathe and you turn it in the direction of the arrow. I was worth more than that. I didn't need to just turn it in the direction of the arrow. So I made something of myself. You know, and part of it was bitterness. I was the high school dropout. I was the loser. I was going to screw everything up. And then I kind of hit a point where I was like, you know what? You're not going to define me. I'm going to define me. I'm worth more than that. And now I'm just going to stick it to you. I'm going to outwork and I'm going to out-earn most of the people that I went to school with that thought I was a loser. Most of the adults that thought I was a loser, because God dang it, I'm not a loser. I'm going to outdo this on my own accord, on my terms, which has made it harder. It took me 40 years to get there, because I did it my way, you know, but you do it. Why are other people so happy to just be miserable with that? I'm worth more than minimum wage. Everybody is. So if they just kind of had that moment where they went, man, and I hear the excuse, well, the jobs in this area don't pay well. I know. That's why I don't work here. That's why I travel all the time for work, because I could get a job that was really good pay that's just not here, but I want to live here. So I have to make that sacrifice, you know, and people just don't seem willing to do that anymore, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if we got air conditioning and forced air, and people got lazy. Refrigeration, so we could keep our food, and they forgot what it was like to have to go hungry for real. We don't go hungry anymore.
No.
Even in the poorest
we have
parts
too
of
much
them.
food.
Yeah, we're throwing food away worldwide. You know, I mean, and then we go, well, remember when we were kids? It was, they're starving kids in China. You know, they're not now.
Yeah,
but we're able to throw food away because it doesn't look pretty enough. Well, you know, that's the system. That's economics telling you that you're worth more than a bruised banana. Why don't you think you're worth more than a bruised banana? You know, like, why? If capitalism looks at you and goes, man, these people have deserved apples that are perfectly shaped and these fruits that are perfectly shaped, then why the hell don't you feel like you deserve that? You know, like we buy organic foods. It's substantially more expensive. Part of it's just because it makes me feel good. Part of it's because I like the way some of it tastes. It's just better food in certain circumstances. Again, it's the sacrifice. I think me and my family are worth really, really good, tasty tomatoes, not those really crappy tomatoes that you get elsewhere. You know, it's like I've put that value out there, and that's what I'm going to live for. So everybody else should. I just don't understand why they don't. You know, that is a baffling concept to me. They're not worth more than the government taking care of them, getting nannied by the state, and I got to live on minimum wage. Like, man, how do you get that through to people? Like, you are really, truly worth more than that.
You know, I think the real American dream is just slowly decaying, you know, like that idea of working, like AOC was making fun of it, like how it's physically impossible to lift yourself up by, it means you put your boots on and you go to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she didn't understand the metaphor.
No.
I was literally like rubbing my temples that day. I was like, oh my God, did she? And this is from a bartender who just got voted into Congress.
Supposedly
She's the example that she doesn't even understand herself. I was having headaches that day.
I walked away from that whole. I spent a lot of time watching She and the Squad, and I finally went, man, I'm out. I can't. I just can't do it anymore. I don't even watch the news at all anymore.
There was this skit years ago on SNL where it was the girl at the party that you don't want to talk to.
Yeah.
And like she is literally her where she was like, oh my God, Christmas is like totally like just commercialized. It's about the birth of Jesus. Yeah, just like listeners, look it up. Yeah, girl, you don't want to run into at the party. SNL. It's
I have had that same thought though. She is literally the epitome of the American dream.
Yeah,
and has no self-awareness to recognize while she's accomplishing the American dream. She's telling you, you can't get here. I'm better than you.
Like
you can't get to where I got to because I took the last opportunity.
It's insane because it's literally exactly like I wish her policies were a little bit center, a little bit center because she's this amazing example. She's exactly what I want because so many politicians are lawyers. Yeah. And I mean, not even many of them are business people. And then they go right into lobbying and yada yada. And I would love it if we had a bunch of people in Congress that were farmers and dentists and, like anything else. Bartenders, absolutely. Yeah. Like, do your thing. Like, I would love to see real people in Congress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be a nice thing.
She's this amazing example that she can't. Can't
get out of her own way.
And she can't get out of her way. And can you imagine that if she were to send that message to everybody else of, hey, you know what? You can all be in Congress too. We don't have to keep letting these two parties force these candidates down our throat. I was just a bartender. It doesn't matter what you are. You can run for Congress and you can change the system
we
too.
We used to hear that.
Oh, I would love.
When I was a kid, it was always anyone could be president.
Yeah.
You could be president. We used to really harp on that too. Man, if you wanted to be president, you just put your mind to it and you can do it. I haven't heard that. My kids don't come home from school talking about that anymore. That used to be a thing. Mm-hmm. Your history classes and social studies and just things in school and moms and dads, it was always like, man, you can be anything you want. For some reason, we just don't feel like you can anymore. I get frustrated with it because I have people that meet me or re-meet me from my youth that are like, man, you've done really well for yourself. Yeah, because I didn't stop. I told my kids last night, as long as you're friggin' moving forward, man, you're doing okay. It might be slow and it might feel like you're running through water, but if just keep moving forward, you're going to get to wherever you want to be. Sometimes they don't even know where it is. I'm 49. I still don't know where I want to be. I'm not exactly sure. I have ideas of things that I could do that maybe that's where I want to end up. Ultimately, it's northern Minnesota in a small place away from everybody and never have to talk again. Just let me shoot things and grow things and call her good. But along the way, there are changes that can be made. So I just keep pushing that. I keep pushing my kids. And I see that. The AOCs of the world that go, man. And even Sanders, he's the same way. Well, nobody can get ahead. Nobody can get there. Well, then how the hell did you get there?
Yeah.
You were
my
that
God.
much
Did
better
you see
than
him
me?
and Anderson Cooper that one where Anderson Cooper, confronted him about, being a millionaire or whatever. And his answer was literally, if you write a book, you can be a millionaire too.
Yeah.
What I was just like, oh my God. But if you create Amazon, you have to 90% of your income gone.
Yeah.
How do you not evolve once you're at that spot?
Good enough for me,
You know what
but
I
not
mean?
for
Like
thee.
you literally just took millionaires out of your speeches and tweets.
Yeah.
Now that you are one. And oh my God,
His fanboys justify it.
Yes.
They do the same thing. Well, he wrote a book.
I
don't care if
they
he wrote a book.
literally say we're stupid for trying to argue that he's being a hypocrite.
Yep.
I'm going to say that again. People actually argue that we are stupid for saying that Sanders is a hypocrite
Yeah.
for not calling out millionaires anymore now that he is one. So I'm wondering how they define stupid. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can take a break. All right. Wow. I actually I don't usually get excited. I'm just like blah blah blah.
Yep,
Oh yeah,
I like it.
like have a question. I'm kind of listening. I don't usually get so involved. Anyways, we're gonna take a little break because we've drank a lot of coffee.
buddy.
So we'll be right back.
Minnesota that voted against HF 8 and HF 9.
Well,
Which is
yeah.
standing in
Yeah.
the House of Representatives. So they're not even in the Democratic.
Well, I would say that's a good start.
It is.
That's a good start. Or actually, I would say it's not even a good start. You said there was 8 Democrats who in the House who voted against, or 5 who voted against. I would actually call that disappointingly low.
It is.
That's what I would describe that as.
As much as there aren't a lot of senators or representatives, rather, in Minnesota, in outstate that are Democrat. Most of those counties, they're staunch Trump counties or whatever. You've got a few. I mean, obviously, St. Louis County, you call it metro because of Duluth, but really it's a rural county. They vote blue, but that's population density that kind of kicks your butt on that one.
Yep.
I don't know. Why does a party get to dictate whatever you believe? So I've looked at running for office in multiple capacities, and you run into that.
Are you going to hijack one of the 2 major parties to do it?
I'm thinking about it. It
I think
might be
you should.
something fun.
I think you should run as a Democrat first.
I think that would be hilarious.
and then run as a Republican if you get rejected
I
as a
think that would be
Democrat.
fantastic.
That's the way to do it right there. By the way, just to reverse, I voted for one Democrat in a national election, that being Kerry, because I disliked W so much I wasn't going to go a third party that year. But I'm never going to be fooled again on that one.
Yeah.
So again, if people want to believe this idea that it's like a GOP right-wing issue, guns being gun ownership being like this GOP right-wing issue, like I have historically voted far more left.
Right.
And the left has basically shifted to the point where now I'm apparently on the right.
Yeah. Well, that goes to what we were talking about on the break. There is this automatic fear factor. This guy said something that differed from my opinion. He must be on enemy territory. By God, he must be alt-right. He has to be a lefty extremist. He's got to be an environmental Nazi. He's got, well, no, he just didn't agree with me on this one topic. And if you sat down and spoke to the person, you'd probably find you agree on far more than you think you really do. You know, but we get that roadblock, and I think that's built into the system. The duopoly is really strong. It's really an impressively powerful system. They shift the goalpost. They move the targets regularly. They control the purse strings. So they've kind of got people hooked into that mentality to where we even adapt it locally, which is a shame because we have, I mean, I talk to Democrats every day that have their carry permits. You know,
Right,
but,
yeah.
but they'll tell you that, you know, well, the Republicans are trying to do this and the Democrats are trying to do that. Well, then why am I hunting with this Democrat? You know, why are we hanging out at the range shooting together? That's weird because you're supposed to be against guns. You know,
Right.
is it the party versus the people? Two totally separate issues, which is a shame because then when it comes down to time to vote, they just party line it. Well, do they really represent you?
Right.
You know, if they're coming to take your guns because your ex-girlfriend said you're a nutbag, why are you still voting for the party that's saying we need to make this law so that your ex-girlfriend can call you a nutbag and get your guns taken?
Yeah, and
what?
And again, I don't understand how Minnesota Democrats, even I should say DFLers, Democratic Farmer Labor Party, have adapted, you know, these, you know, these ideas that just historically haven't even worked.
No.
You know, I mean, you look at the places that have the strictest gun control laws, and big surprise, they have some of the highest gun
Yeah.
violence.
Yep.
You know, because now now the only way you can get a gun is illegally.
Yeah.
So the only people that have them are criminals who are willing to engage in violence. And then the people who are innocent civilians aren't able to get legal guns to protect themselves.
See, that's where I can get real conspiracy theory on. So I think they're, in my little brain, I get these little dark workings where you go, this is all by design. So if we can make it virtually impossible or so filled with obstructions to legally purchase a firearm and legally own and continue to own a firearm, people finally just go, yeah, you know, it's really not that important for me to go grouse hunting or to protect my house because, you know, the police will show up eventually or whatever. So you create this harder and harder for the average person to want to own a gun.
Yep.
So you go, okay, great. So firearms ownership becomes less, which obviously increases the crime because the guys that are doing it illegally are going to do it illegally. So then you've got this powerful branch of government that goes, we're kind of tired of you being a free person. We're not really digging this thing. So how do we get rid of your guns? Well, we kind of make it tough. Then we have to step in and save everybody from everything because look at the craziness that's going on and the people just can't even protect themselves now. And then you get this great martial law sort of thing and they get to stomp the foot down on your throat really, really easily. You know, so I can run down that rabbit hole and get really crazy with it. And I see it. I mean, we're not teaching, like you said, you had firearm safety as a child. We used to have that a lot.
In elementary school.
Yeah, there wasn't fear of this.
It wasn't like, you know, part of the course.
Yeah.
But it's the physically building.
Yeah.
Physical building where it was offered at was my elementary school.
No, we did too.
Yeah.
Where I went to school over in Crosby, we had firearms classes right in school. We had DNR guys and sheriffs would come in and talk about guns and, you know, they'd bring a gun in and show you stuff like in class time. We carried guns to school. You had to keep it in your car. There was an early part there where you could actually, if it was cased, you could bring it to like the shop class and like, hey, you know, Mr. B, can you hang on to this for me because I'm going to go hunting right after school. We got away from that, and we continue to. Now, thank God there's a big movement for trap teams. High school trap teams are becoming a huge thing.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that's a very nice thing. It's starting to boom.
That would definitely start to change the culture.
Fastest growing sport in the state of Minnesota right now is high school trap teams, which is good.
Wow, that's
But
awesome.
then where are kids learning to shoot? If, again, that makes me nervous as a non-government guy and a non-big government guy. These are government sanctioned because through the school board or whatever, they're kind of the state high school leagues and all that.
Yeah.
So you go, oh, there's a little government control there, but I love the fact that people are going, man, I need to do this. Now parents need to step in and teach their kids about guns. We do it with my youngest boy is a Nerf gun shooter. He's got there's got to have 100 of these stupid things. And they're forever shooting them at each other, and the kids are doing it, and they get buddies over, and they're shooting each other, and they're having wars, and I'm always screaming, you know, keep your booger hook off the boom button and you know, don't flag me with your gun. No headshots, you know, watch where you're pointing it, to the point where now his buddies, when they come over, they're calling the other kids out, man, get your booger hook off of there. You know, you can't point that at them. They're not shooting this thing. So like, I'm constantly instilling that in the kids.
Yeah.
And now their friends are going, man, you know, your dad's kind of a crazy bugger, but he's really big about gun safety. And it's a Nerf gun. Yes. But if you learn to handle a Nerf gun safely, instinctively, when you move to BB guns and then bigger guns, you're going to have that training, that background in it. You're not afraid of it, but you know how to treat it. It's a good thing, you know. And I do have parents that will probably oppose to my letting the kids shoot each other with Nerf guns because they're anti-gun across the board, but so be it. You know, when you're at my house, you're on my rules.
There's a reason that toy guns exist.
Yeah.
It is to teach children the responsibility of gun ownership.
Yep.
It's really very simple.
That little kid video that's out there, that little kid shoots himself in the junk with a Nerf gun.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
my favorite.
I love that.
I want every kid to do that because that lit him up. And he learned a valuable lesson. Like, guns hurt.
yeah, exactly. Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean.
Poor little bugger.
Well. Is what it is.
Yeah.
He learned his lesson. That is for sure.
Well, and that's that, the hot stove mentality. You got to stick your hand on a stove to learn that it's, mom and dad weren't kidding. That really does hurt. It's, the little Ralphie kid from the Christmas Story, shoots his eye out, sort of a thing. You had to learn the hard way. We all did. I would rather that we get the opportunity to teach kids and not have that fear. People are afraid of the unknown. They've never shot a gun. So they're scared of it. They've seen it in the movies. They're scared of it. They've seen a silencer in the movie or a suppressor, so they think all guns go pew, pew when they're shot with a suppressor on them. You have no personal knowledge, no working knowledge of it, and you're scared of it. I'm scared. I was scared to drive an 18-wheeler when I first tried to drive one.
Well, and then they literally think that, like, the only reason you would ever want a silencer is if you're, like, some sort of hitman or something. And it's like, no, like, if you shot a gun, you would really quickly understand, like, those earmuffs, like, they suck when you're trying to, like, okay, so, like, they're just not practical for shooting realistically. I mean, other than, a pistol.
Handguns.
But if you are raising a gun to your shoulder, like, earmuffs don't really work. So then you got those real uncomfortable ones you put in your ear that don't really block all that much. And then, hold all that bacteria and everything in. And, like, a suppressor's just going to quiet that noise for everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't lose my hearing when I'm, and just shooting practice rounds, 3 times a week, which I don't do. But there's people who, there's people who practice. They just shoot their guns a lot, and loud guns hurt your ears and
there's a
deteriorate your
dichotomy.
hearing.
Europe, where it's historically difficult to buy a firearm, and you got to jump through a lot of hoops to get a personal use firearm. It's required to have a suppressor. So here we are in the land of the free, and it's all you can do to get a suppressor. And they're working on regulating them even further. You go, well, that's weird. So in Europe, where I can barely get a gun, they require a suppressor because it saves your hearing and it doesn't disturb your neighbors. Over here, we're like, well, we don't want you to do that. We want you to blow out your ears and scare the bejesus out of everybody within a half-mile range of you.
Right.
It's and then they complain, well, we can't have this firing range over here because it's too loud. Well, then just open up suppressors and that problem goes away.
Oh my God.
It's just common sense, and it's so rare it should be a superpower. So, it's always interesting to me to watch that gun debate over the suppressors, and you go, wow. So I have friends in England that buy a gun, and it comes with the suppressor because you have to. Over here, it's, no, I'm going to need 16 more background checks, a few $1,000s, a couple more hoops, and, sign this in blood. Jesus.
Ultimately, the thing that really blows my mind is the people who are opposed or who are pro gun control, quote unquote gun control laws, seem to not really know or understand anything about guns.
No.
They will use different names. They don't understand what an automatic or a semi-automatic is. They don't understand how restrictive gun laws are now. That really blows my mind. Like, I'm not going to go into a deep political debate or argument or have a lot of strong feelings even about something that I'm really not informed on. We were saying before, like, during the break, I think, like, I was like, when Bernie first came around and was talking about Swedish, democratic socialism, I was like, okay, well, this is 5 years ago or whatever. When he came on the national scene. So, I did this thing. Not a lot of people know about it, but there's this thing called Google.
Whoa.
And you can type something in, And then you need to find a good source because there's some sources that aren't really good, but generally if it's like .gov, it's going to be pretty good. So I was actually able to find out like how these governments operate and what they are. And so they're all monarchies, actually. Yeah. And they have a parliament, and they have a capitalist economy, and they have a large welfare state that is pushed by very, very high taxes. They also have a culture like that's been around for a few thousand years, where sharing is just like a thing. Yeah. So like, you know, in a village, like there would be a fisher person, and then you and your neighbors, you would grow. You know, he would grow cabbage and rye, and then I'm gonna grow wheat and potatoes, and we all share different. We all grow different stuff, and then we split up the crops, so we all get different stuff, and then we trade this with the fishermen as they catch fish, right? So that's just been part of their culture for literally thousands of years. Another part of their culture is literally, we were talking about like lifting yourself up by your bootstraps and like, you know, really going out and accomplishing and like working harder than the guy next to you. I think is sort of the unspoken part of that. You know, like, you know, this one dude, like he shows up at you know, every time I show up to work, he's already here, and I'm showing up 10 minutes early. So I'm going to show up 15 minutes early and see if I can get here earlier than him. You know, that guy who never wants to work weekends, like I'm going to fucking start every time, you know, the boss needs extra hours, I'm going to volunteer for it. You know, like that's part of American mentality is strive for excellence. There's literally this culture in those Swedish countries. I can't remember the name of the word, but like you don't want to, like it's like being a show off. You know, like you're not supposed to try extra hard, and you know, it's literally looked down upon on their culture.
Well, and that's kind of like they always say like Denmark and Sweden are always the happiest countries in the world. But then when you look at those countries and you talk to people there, one of the things they have that's just ingrained in their culture is don't complain. So you know, are you happy? Well, so you're the most happy culture in the world because it doesn't even occur to you to go, it's kind of, you know, I've had a rough day, you know, no, that stoicism gets portrayed as happiness just because you're not supposed to. It's culturally strong there. And you see it, you know, northern Minnesota with the Finns and the Germans in southern Minnesota. It's the same sort of thing. They don't complain. They just, life is good. I'm okay.
You know, dude, you're 6 feet above ground. We're good. You know? So you know that and so like the very strong union culture that they have works really, really well within their culture itself. Whereas unions, I don't think work really well in America because it stifles that I'm going to work harder than the guy next to me, you know. And now it's like, well, he's been here 20 years, so he's going to get the promotion no matter what, and he's not going to work harder. He's going to work less and get more money, and this sucks. But I'm going to stick around for 20 years because then that'll be me, you know? So I don't think unions work really all that well in America. No. And that's not a conversation I want to get into. No. But so union culture works really well in those, you know, Swedish countries, or in those Scandinavian countries, which, you know, then allows them to not have a minimum wage at all. So all these things that Bernie pushes for, like $15, you know, or a minimum wage, and these a lot of these countries are smaller than they have a population smaller than New York. I think all of them do.
Half of them are Minnesota sized.
But 6 million. But 6 million people. You know, so I mean, and I remember you made this argument too. Like, if you want to have healthcare at the state level, absolutely go for it. It's a federal 300 plus million people that we cannot manage that. You know, like here's the thing that like the far left or even most people on the left, and independents like you and me, and even plenty of conservatives, is that the government is corrupt.
Right.
So why do we want it to do more?
Right.
I don't understand.
Yeah, these guys really suck. They spend my money poorly. They do everything wrong.
Yeah,
Take more.
Take more.
Oh, that's effective. That on the state level thing, I looked at this. I was thinking about this again the other day too. Look at the gigantic corporations, whether it's the Boeings or the GEs or the Apples or whoever they are. There is no single entity, and everybody else just answers to those. Mm-hmm. You have a corporate office, the Fed, and then you have 16 branch Chinese corporate offices that are running different regions of China as far as their Apple distribution goes. And Amazon has their distribution centers throughout the country because one entity removed from everything else cannot effectively and efficiently run that business.
Right.
America is exactly the same damn thing.
Even insurance companies.
Yeah.
Why do you have a local insurance agent for State Farm, this huge national company? Because he knows what you need, and you can go there and talk to him, and you can figure it out.
Yep.
Try calling State Farm on the phone.
Good times.
Have a good time. Have a good time. Yeah. You're literally probably going to be better off just like driving to the insurance agents, even if it could be 7:00 on a Friday and they won't be open until 8 on a Monday. Mm-hmm. You're better off waiting than calling. Just waiting in the parking lot with no food, you would be better off than calling.
And most people seem to know that. Like
central planning doesn't work.
And so they accept that in the world of economics, and in the consumer world, they think that's good. Mm-hmm. But then when they look at as a government and as a population, it's going to work. You couldn't do it for a business that only served half the population.
Yeah.
And you think some knucklebrain in D.C. is going to be able to know exactly what you need the best and what's going to work for you. And then, it falls back on that. America was founded on independence, self-reliance, and individuality. Pretty hard to take a culture that was founded on that principle and say now everybody act the same.
Yeah.
243 years of us going, man, this is the way we're going to do it, my way, and man, it's just nonsense.
It's been a while since I read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but I'm pretty sure the word collectivism isn't in there anywhere.
No.
I don't recall that in there.
Nope, I've dug. It might be in the margins. You got to put a little lemon juice in the hair dryer.
I don't even think it's in the Federalist Papers.
Nope.
No, it's not really. If it's talked about at all, it's probably talked about in a negative way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure, when you start looking at like some of the writings of Thomas Paine or, Tocqueville or somebody, they may have mentioned some collectivism, but it wouldn't have been a shining example.
Thomas Paine was also a burn this mother down guy.
Personal hero, thank you.
See, I'm much more of a like Benjamin Franklin, like, we can sit down and work it out. Yeah. We'll figure this out.
Well, yeah.
But the argument used to be way different at that point, I mean, like the Federalists and the Whigs were not as far apart on some major issues as, probably the Democrats and Republicans are now.
Well,
but they're both shifted more towards authoritarianism.
I don't feel like we have a common goal anymore. So at that time, there was a common goal.
That's a good point, yeah.
We were going to try to get away from British rule. We were going to try to be self-rule. Mm-hmm. So there was that. We have a defined target we're going to go for. For some reason, we've gotten away from that, and a little bit of that's just individuality. Everybody has a different goal, of course, but then the collective formed around this initial goal, and then it got bastardized. So now we don't even have a common goal. I don't hear Democrats and Republicans saying they want the same thing. I think Trump's "Make America Great" thing should have resonated really, really well. But there was half of the voting population that was like, "What a terrible idea!" I mean, seriously, going, "This is terrible. What a racist thing to say!" And how in the hell is "Make a Country Great" bad?
Well, the word again at the end is weird to me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But we're better now than we've ever been on pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Things are better now worldwide than ever before. Ultimately, there's still suffering.
Yeah.
Not denying that, but things are if you had to pick any time to live and you didn't pick now, you're kind of foolish about history. That's for sure.
Or a little cocky.
No matter what time period you picked, you're probably going to be one of those people that doesn't survive to adulthood because there's a whole lot of them.
Yep.
A whole lot of them throughout history.
I throw myself on the cocky side of that. I'm like, I could have lived through that. I'd give it a go.
Or think about the West where you didn't get a bath for weeks at a time until you got into town. And you might be bathing in water that several other people have bathed in. Yeah.
Shocking that we all had syphilis.
Think about right? So, next time you're in the shower every damn goddamn day, think about how you could be showering or you could be bathing in a tub with a bunch of other people that already bathe in, total strangers in the West for a nickel. You know?
So then,
and that nickel was probably equal to what, about $10 now. $10. It was.
You wonder psychologically too, like we've run out of stuff to bitch about.
Oh yeah, that's exactly where it is.
So we create a lot of things to bitch about.
We're so spoiled. We have to find the extreme cases,
but then on that,
and present them as the worst.
That must mean that somewhere inside of you, you're still pursuing that American dream. You're still trying to better yourself. You found this totally obscure nonsense BS to be pissed off about and then demand government regulate you for. But that must mean that you still have a bit of the American dream, the bit of the American ideal, like we can do better, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But do I need government to do better, or can I just do better?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't ask government to make my property nice. I just went out with a damn lawnmower and a sickle mower, and I cleaned it up, and I made it nice. Why would we want to do that for everything else in the world? But it is almost heartening to think that, well, the reason you're finding things to bitch about that are absolutely ridiculous is because you see room for improvement and you are trying to make America better. Mm-hmm. It's just that the end way, what you think is better, maybe not. I like individuality. I don't mind. I have no time for racism. I have no time for authoritarianism. But I also don't mind the fact that other people have that opinion, that they espouse those views. I may not like it, but you were entitled to that view. I'm never going to make it all go away. I can't make the grizzly bear not kill a human being. I can't make the poisonous snake not bite every person that it comes in contact with. I can't do the same thing with people. I can't make every problem go away. I've accepted that. So how do I use that to make everything else better? That shitty person is a good example for me. I don't want to be that guy, so I'll just make my little world better so that nobody I know has to encounter a crap fest like that racist dude down the street.
Right. Yeah.
I can't legislate their morality. I can't legislate them into being better people. It is what it is. So let's not work towards fixing that. Let's just try going, you know what? I'm going to fix myself. Fix my state. I don't need to fix the federal side of it. 50 laboratories of best practice. Let's just make my state fantastic. And whatever we decide as 5-6 million of us, well, then great.
Yeah.
Go with that. I can live with authority in that regard because I had a voice in it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's fighting with the city thing. I get a little voice. That's nice.
And that's one of the reasons that those Swedish countries actually work so well is they are that small, and it's a lot easier to access your politicians.
Yeah.
So if they were really unhappy with the way things were there, they would be able to go there and speak their voice about it, to the actual politician.
Exactly.
Like you can you'll be able to contact him. It's not going to be that hard. There's 6 million people. Like in Iceland, like everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Like
they're all related.
Literally, almost all of them are related. They literally, are trying to bring in people so they can get new blood in and everything, so they're not inbred. But yeah, I mean, it's literally one of those things where, like, if you don't know the person, you know somebody who does. Andrew Heaton, we'd mentioned Andrew Heaton before. Did you hear his episode about Iceland? How he wants to run for mayor of Reykjavik. But yeah, he mentioned, he's interviewing some guy from Iceland. I can't remember who the guy was, but this podcast, let me back up for our listeners. This podcaster named Andrew Heaton had a podcast where he was interviewing somebody from Iceland. I can't remember who he was, but Andrew Heaton mentioned, was talking about this, how everybody knows each other, and he mentioned some politician, and he says, "Do you know this guy?" And his guest says, "Oh yeah, I'm related to him."
Yeah, it was like his uncle or something.
He's like my second uncle. So if our government was like that, if that's where the major authority was, that would
Yeah.
make things way easier. Absolutely.
Yep.
Then I would be a big fan of that. And that's the whole point of the 10th Amendment, for that matter.
Yes.
Like these issues should be, sort of in the state's hands, almost
Yeah.
all of them, At this point, I think the federal government could dissolve a lot of stuff and
Oh,
not
yeah.
be there so much, and like senators can Skype each other.
Yep.
We have the technology that they don't even have to like physically be in the same building,
Well,
to have giant conferences and
When
everything.
was the last time anyone hung out with Tina Smith or Amy Klobuchar?
Not at all. No,
Exactly.
No.
That's our senators. That's our representation in D.C. I don't know a single person that's ever spent any sort of quality time with either one of those. Now, on my state level, we've got representatives here, Josh Heinzman, we've got Senator Kerry Rude, we've got Dale Lewick over on the other side of my district. I've spent time with all of them. I speak to them on a first-name basis. They know me on a first-name basis. That's politics in action. That's government in action representing the people, because I have access to that person. Most of this state, last election was 87% Trump. But we have Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith as our senators. Well, are they really representative of the people when 87% of this state, by county and district went for Trump? So they must not be all that representative.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you really have my ear? I know you don't, because I email them about gun control all the time, and I never get even a thank you letter from that one. So they're not really representing me, so I can't count on that at D.C., but I know the people here will at least hear my voice. They may not agree with it, but they'll at least hear it, and I do get thank you letters. I get, hey, thanks for contacting me. I can't even get that from Klobuchar.
Before I opened up this place, I was emailing then Governor Dayton and Heinzman and Senator Gatsilka.
Yeah.
About once a month or so. Josh is the only one that ever returned an email.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we disagree on several things, and we agree on a few things.
Yeah.
And I would really love to get him on the podcast. Maybe I have to
He'd be a
promise.
good one.
Maybe I have to promise not to grill him about pot legislation or something for him to come on.
Yeah. Could be a hot button issue.
Yeah. That is something we vehemently disagree on, and I don't know. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons it's unfortunate is how I've come to change my mind so damn often and evolve politically is by having rational conversations with people who disagree with me. I had a lot of them, and a lot of people made me think.
Oh, yeah.
I used to be basically a Marxist, 12 years ago, and now I'm doing the cross symbol, like, go away, get away from me. No, Marxism and me do not. I'm just collectivism of any kind, authoritarianism.
Yeah, see,
No,
I was much more hardline anarchist than anything, and I was kind of a collapsitarian style, burn it all down anarchist. There is still that little bent. I think that's where the libertarian style leanings come from. There is a bit of me that's like, burn it down to the base structure where it was supposed to be.
I swung that far too. Like I've pendulumed back and forth, like going really far one way or another, and found myself kind of settling in the middle here.
And it's funny. So you look at the 80s, and so many of my friends are liberal or Democrat now, and I look back at the 80s and I think of the PMRC, Parental Music Resource Center.
Oh yeah.
We're going to censor all of the music
Tipper
you hear.
Gore and
Democrats
Hillary Clinton, right?
Yeah, and Al Gore, Tipper Gore, the Clintons, Democrats censoring my speech to make you feel safe from swear words.
Right.
It was the most ridiculous thing, and I look and I go, man, a lot of these guys that I grew up with really hated that. They really were like, dude, why are they trying to make Ozzy not say anything bad? It didn't make sense, but now they're voting for people that proved themselves then to be authoritarians.
Yeah.
You will say what we tell you to say.
Yeah.
You will think what we tell you to think, but we're going to give you choice.
Yeah.
Well, what in the hell is that? So how did you end up watching that? That was what made me not be liberal. Like, watching that in the 80s was like, well, clearly the Republicans suck because they're kind of propagating war, and the Democrats suck because they're telling me what I can think and what I can say and what I can listen to. well, I clearly can't fall on either of these camps. So it was really a hard thing to, that's, I think, part of why I ended up being like homeless and wandering around, was that I just didn't feel like I ever had a place.
Yeah.
I didn't fit in anywhere else. So you automatically follow that anarchy thing of just burn it all down. And slowly I've discovered the founders, and I've spent more time looking at that mentality, and you're like, dude, they just had it right. I mean, they just really kind of like, I want you to be you, do your thing, work your ass off, get ahead, and don't hurt other people. Just leave people the hell alone, and we'll all get along just fine. Yeah, like that just seems like a very simple mantra to me. It's kind of that do unto others, golden rule sort of thing. Like, this seems simple to me. If I leave you alone, you'll leave me alone. If you need something and you ask, I will offer it up, and I will help you. If you need something and take it, I will beat you to a bloody pulp. This, it just seems simple to me. Like, it seems like the founders kind of had it right. So now I get grouped into that. Well, you're a Republican. You're in the GOP. You're on the right. I'm totally not. Either way, I'm just the dude that wants to be left alone.
I sway like away from like ANCAPs and stuff. It's so weird because I'll get thrown into either the conservative camp or the libertarian camp, and I'm like, I don't even really identify as a libertarian because a lot of libertarians want way less government than me. Like, I'm okay with the CDC,
right,
and the FDA.
Not a fan of the FDA, but I am pretty okay with the CDC.
I don't say that. I'm not going to say that they're doing a great job. There's a lot of drugs that get approved that then need to get recalled, and it takes a long time, and there's all sorts of issues. But I like the idea of the FDA. The Constitution was a great foundation.
Yes.
But we're in a modern world, so there's just new things that have come up, and that isn't an open door to saying that we shouldn't have guns at all, because that's not where I'm going, but cybercrime, I mean, they had no understanding of germs, of viruses, of how anything was spread, so because of this is March 15th when we're recording this, so there's a bunch of stuff that just all closed down because of the COVID-19, and everybody's freaking out and buying a whole bunch of ass wipe. And even then, like spaghetti and spaghetti sauce, like everything's closing down, and people are freaking out. And it's just like, it's weird because, the libertarians are saying, "Oh my God, how dare you interrupt travel?"
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, you can have this for weeks and not know it, So, I tend to lean towards, I like to label myself as a Lockean liberal. It's great because I get to use the word liberal,
right?
and then people who probably call themselves liberal don't necessarily know what I mean by Lockean. And so I'm standing firmly on these founding philosophies that ended up being used in the Constitution. And so that's, because I don't identify with that libertarian group, really. I'm actually an admin of this group called Ask a Libertarian, and I don't really identify as a libertarian. But I can defend that position really well.
Right. That's why I always caveat with the little L. I'm not a big L. I'm a little L.
Right, yeah. So, you're not a party member, but yeah. And even that, I will sometimes have worse arguments with libertarians than I will with progressives.
They're their own worst enemies.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It's almost independent to a fault, because everybody,
the infighting is insane. It's insane, and they end up doing the same thing that it just makes me facepalm what the other side does, just like straw man arguments and just one true Scotsman. You're not a real libertarian. Like, well, no, I'm not a libertarian. You're correct. But
I have had that one a few times. You're not a real libertarian. Wow, you nailed me.
Yep, you got me.
Well done.
I'm a Craig.
Yeah, exactly. A constitutional originalist. I think Matt Taylor had called me a constitutional purist. I don't know if I'd say a purist, but an originalist, because the intent was fantastic.
Yeah.
And even then,
it's a solid foundation.
And exactly. So you do get this. There are two sides of the camp of it's a living document. One side thinks because it's living, parts of it should die off. The other side is my camp that believes, yes, it's a living document in as much as it's still alive today. The foundational principles need to stay there and be there. It's like rebuilding a house. You can have a great house and go, oh, it's falling apart, I'm going to rebuild it. But the foundation, if that doesn't stay there, your new house is just going to fall over anyway. So keep those foundational principles. But there's room to move and grow. There's a reason why they specifically said in order to create a more perfect union, not a perfect union.
Yeah, more perfect.
In order to create a more perfect union. So they recognized that this wasn't the be all end all. This was the start.
Yeah.
And from here we build forward. We have to maintain these freedoms. We have to maintain these constitutional building blocks and then advance from there. But without those base blocks, the first 10 in the Bill of Rights, you're not going to have much of an opportunity to improve from there. You start letting those fall aside, the building crumbles, and now we're left with what? Marxism, anarchy, Venezuela, North Korea, or something worse. People seem to forget. And that's a crappy part about American history now too. We tend to forget about the Pol Pots of the world, the Maos of the world. We're not taught those things, so we don't have a basis of how bad it can really get.
Yeah.
Like we don't. Everybody falls back on Nazi Germany. Man, as much as that sucked and it was ugly, there was even worse. There are places that killed 100 million people as opposed to 8 million people. And that's even worse and scary.
And you know what I see that all these things have in common is that ultimately it was all driven by emotion.
Yeah.
Whether it's hate or fear or whatever it is. When you legislate through emotion, you're not going to get anywhere good.
You generate tyranny automatically.
Yeah. And even if that emotion is I'm losing. I can't even is empathy. Even if you're like, oh, but we need to take care of these people.
Right.
You're legislating through emotion, and the foundation, the Bill of Rights, that's all philosophical.
Yeah.
When you start legislating with emotion, you're on really, really shaky ground.
Yeah.
You're not on that solid foundation of a philosophy anymore. And like you said, if you build a house on a poor foundation, it's going to crumble. It's going to have problems. It's going to end up collapsing. You need to have a solid foundation to build a house. Same thing with a nation. You need a solid foundation.
Yeah. Oh,
you know? And if we deviate from that, it's going to crumble.
Well, and even legislating on emotion, you think about all of the psychology, the pop psychology and the pseudopsychology, it all says the same thing. Never make a major decision within 30 days from a traumatic event. So you lose a spouse, you lose a loved one. They tell you don't make any major decisions from that point. Give it 30 days to calm down and relax, and then look at it more pragmatically, more objectively, and make your decisions. So now we're going to legislate on emotion because we heard of a school shooting, or we're going to legislate on emotion because COVID-19 is here, or whatever the case may be. Rash and bad decisions happen from that. Take a breath and go, all right, it's better. Now we can legislate on what we learned from that as opposed to how we reacted to it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Goofy buggers.
Yep. So, hey, let's swing back to income tax before I forget about it. You were saying that, basically the problem that you had with it is that it's forced and that it goes to all these things that you don't care for.
Right. So I'm not represented in where that money gets spent.
Absolutely.
It's not effectively spent or efficiently spent for sure.
Right.
It's just pure waste. So you're not only taking it from me without my consent, but then you're spending it in ways that I would never, ever consent to.
Absolutely.
I can't see dropping bombs on poppy fields being a useful tool. You know, like how is that beneficial to me in any way, shape, or form, or to even the general welfare, the greater good of America? So there's a million reasons to hate it. Plus, I just like my money. I worked for it. Why don't I get to keep what I worked for? You came to my house and took my house down. I don't approve of that.
So here's my idea that I try to float to people that are willing to actually listen to me, which isn't very common.
There's like 7 of us.
Is I think there should be a voluntary income tax.
Yeah.
So instead of filling out your, W-4 and it tells, figure out your deductions, you have this list, right? And it's like the Center for Disease Control, the FBI, the Navy, and there's just a list. And then you can pick like a dollar amount or a percentage that you can pick to go out annually or, monthly or whatever. And then things that absolutely need to be funded.
Yeah.
You know, the military, the CDC, the FBI. You think I just named, national parks probably wouldn't necessarily be on that list. You know, well, they should get. I really like the national park, but I would give them a bunch of money. Is the thing.
That's always
you know
my.
what I mean?
That's always my argument, and I get so much pushback on it. It could never work. I'm a firm believer that
How
if you
wouldn't
believe
it?
in something, why would you not pay for that thing?
Yeah.
If you have to force me under threat of gun, because that's ultimately what tax is.
Yeah.
You are coming with a man with a gun to take my damn money one way or another.
Yeah.
So I don't get a choice in that. But if I believe in some, a national park or the post office or whatever stupid thing you can think of, look, it's something I believe in, then why wouldn't I chip in for that? And so, and I ask people that now too. Everybody's tax forms at the end of the year has a little check marks. Would you like to pay more? It's a viable option that is available to everyone.
But you don't get to pick where it goes.
Yeah.
It's just to the general fund.
But I still hear people going, well, I'd happily pay more taxes. Dude,
Do
that
it.
option's there.
That is
'Cause
totally there.
If
In
you
fact-
all did it,
in-
I wouldn't have to.
in fact, like it's like you don't have to do your taxes and file for deductions. And if you if you have the potential to get a refund, you can do your best to lower that refund and then donate it back to the government.
Yep.
But nobody does that.
No.
Even people who say that, like I can't even imagine what Bernie Sanders' accountant's bill is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He spends a lot of money doing everything he can to lower his taxes.
Yeah. As they all do.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Like,
I give Trump
I
credit
would-
for that because he was asked about that when he was running. And
Oh, yeah.
he's
Total
like,
oh, fuck yeah.
yeah, of course I am.
Yeah.
The tax laws suck, but they work to my advantage.
Yeah.
Everybody does the same thing. I do it. I make a decent living, and in order for me to ever see a tax refund, I would have to work my ass off just to get the tax papers that I could go, well, I broke even. So I've done that on the. Otherwise, throughout the year, I monitor my numbers and I balance it out so that typically come year end, when I'm done, I don't owe anybody anything. They don't owe me anything. I just work it out to even because if I'm getting money back, well, probably shouldn't. I do make a decent enough living that I shouldn't be getting a giant refund. I have no exemptions. I have no kids at home that I'm claiming as dependents. So, whatever. And I don't want to step on the foot of the IRS right now. I'd just rather not fight with these people. So I kind of work it out to even most of the time.
So you're telling me that you could take money that other people paid in
Yes.
and you wouldn't?
No.
So you wouldn't accept stolen money?
No.
Oh, that's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. I'm a virtue signaling fool.
Oh, that's exactly what you're doing. Oh, I'm not going to take a tax return.
Yeah. So I am really weird about it. So I've never been.
No, that's not weird. That's awesome.
I've never been highly eligible for tax refunds. I've always done well enough, or
Sure.
I've been a single
So,
dude.
yeah.
But it's like, man, somebody's. So a prime example, my wife gets a nice refund. We're not married. We're domestic partners, but wife is just easier to say. She gets a nice tax refund every year because she has 3 kids that are dependents. She does great. Now, bless her heart, every year she gets her tax refund check and goes, thank you, to me. Which is awesome because my tax burden is substantially higher than hers, but she's also earned some of that. Yes, it's more than she paid, but she's also raised 3 kids. She does the lion's share of the child rearing. I might pay a good chunk of the bills, but when it comes to the actual child care part of it, she puts in way more time than I ever will. So you've earned some of that. And it's easier for me to let you get paid that way than it is for me to just keep handing you money.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, that's fine. It's just mine anyway. But so there's all kinds of little weird nuances that go on there. But I also believe that on a moral standpoint, if you're a single person with 1 kid, you paid $4,000 in taxes last year. You made $20,000. You paid $4,000 in taxes, and you got a tax refund for $14,000 as your overpayment. Well, how is that possible?
Is that possible?
It is possible. That's
Tell
the
me
scary
how.
thing. So, I know. I have an aunt actually that was raising her grandson, and she was getting it was like a just over $9,000 tax refund. She made $7,000 on the year. That was her taxable income was $7,000. So she only paid in like $756 on the year.
Yeah.
Gets a $9,800 tax refund for her overpayment.
That's insane.
See, now you're stealing from me.
Yeah.
Again, taxation is theft.
Yep.
Because that money did not come from her. It came from me.
And see, I don't like that. again, where me and libertarians differ. I don't like the phrase at all. Right, because it leads to this implication that all taxation is theft.
Right,
and I'm very, very willing. I would prefer for everything to be in sales tax, and then a voluntary income tax.
Yep.
So I like the term actually income tax is extortion.
Yeah,
because it's more it's more direct to the point. First of all, it gets to the tax we should have a problem with, income tax, right, and property tax. I mean, but any sort of voluntary tax, which would be sales tax. I'm choosing to buy something.
Yes.
But property tax, that's weird to me. So I have to pay tax on something that I already bought. Again, there's taxes at time of sale. There's going to be extra taxes because it's real estate. That's all kind of built in. I don't have a problem with that. The more expensive something is, the higher the taxes should be. And even the higher the tax rate, I'm okay with. If you're buying a building in New York that's 12 stories tall, I'm okay with it having a higher tax rate than a 2-bedroom house on Long Island. I'm okay with that.
I differ on that a little bit. I love the idea of like a flat tax. Like, hey, look, everybody's going to pay 10% across the board or whatever the number is.
I'm totally okay with that as well. Yeah, if an income tax was flat, there was no such thing as deductions.
That'd be glorious.
Everybody. Yeah, exactly. And then there's no weird IRS, filling out paperwork every year. You got to stress. Literally, I think it should be like 5%.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 5% income tax right off the top that everybody pays no matter what their income is.
Was it Ben
I'm
Carson
totally
that
okay with
presented that last time? I think it was Ben Carson. The 555. 5% sales tax, 5% income tax, and 5% whatever the hell the other one, value added or whatever it was. And he had done he'd done some number crunching that actually worked out that it would have balanced the budget in like 9 years.
Nice.
So you go,
who knows if it really works?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
experiment anyway.
Yes.
Try something else. This ain't
but
working.
I think of that with the sales tax. Even you could just go, okay, here's the sales tax on everything, but on the difference I see on the buildings and the big businesses is 5% of $5 or 5% of $10 is what, 5 cents.
Oh yeah,
5% of $50 billion. You're getting your share out of that one. It's like there's definitely some wiggle room there.
Yeah, but we're also fighting people that want 90% income tax.
And I love that too. Well, we used to do that, yes, and there was a reason why we don't do it anymore.
Nobody paid it.
No, they didn't come
they
close.
They had deductions and everything just like we do now, and nobody came close to paying that.
And just offshoring and hiding money. I mean, back then maybe not so much
all
offshoring,
that income
but
tax leads to is all these.
It's infuriating. You can say that we did things, but it's not how it worked.
I think it's just. If I have a multi-million-dollar company that's going to purchase a multi-story building in New York, I'm probably using more government resources than the family that's on the island, on Long Island with the house. So that's how I can justify a higher sales tax.
Fair enough.
So you want a duck boat and it's 12 feet long. You're gonna pay a 5% sales tax on that. Erwin Jacobs, wants to buy a new yacht. And it's a 12% tax because it's over, it's over 16 feet long, so it's this tax, and then it's over 20 feet long, so it's a higher tax, right? So like the taller the building, the higher the tax, the longer the boat, right?
I can see where that's good for the other side, especially to go, because there is a large swath of this country that loves a progressive income tax or a progressive tax of any sort. They love sticking it to the man that did good, so that makes them feel like they've stuck it to the man that did good. That's it's exploiting people to get rich. You go, they're paying a little bit more.
I'm not gonna play that game, but I'm gonna say, if you have a large corporation and are employing a bunch of people, yes, you're running the economy, you're doing all these amazing things. You're also using more government resources than an individual family. So a sales tax on luxury items that's at a higher rate. I can justify that, philosophically. Yeah,
Fair enough.
So I don't even need to play their game to get there. I don't like a progressive income tax is insane to me because it's literally like
punishment for doing well.
Well, beyond that, it's legitimate. I can't. I'm losing my words again. It's legitimate discrimination.
Yeah.
Which like is just insane to me. Like, how can we have this foundation of fair and equal treatment under the law, and then be like, oh well, because he made so much money,
Yeah.
he should pay a higher tax rate. I don't understand. Like, that's so obvious discrimination.
Counter to the
It's-
American principles.
And
That's- yeah.
every time I've presented that argument to anybody, they do not have any counter argument to it. So until I get a counter argument to it, if you want to put something in the comments, people, let me know. But that's my argument, is that a progressive income tax is discrimination. You're discriminating against people based off income.
Yeah.
And shoot for it. If you got a good argument, it'll change my mind.
Yeah, it would be a good...
I've been there before.
I'd like to see a good argument for that. I'd like
Yeah.
to see even a reasonable
Reasonable.
argument.
Nobody has anything.
Yep, I've
yeah.
not seen anything that would come close to it, and I can ponder those things a long time in my lifetime. Like, I'll just bounce ideas in
Yeah.
my head all the time because...
I love thought experiments,
Well,
man.
we were talking about Jordan Peterson. He's in that same sort of, like, your brain is always spinning.
Yeah.
He's always problem solving. Mine is, I'm just not as intellectually advanced as that. Very
Right.
few people are. But so you go, man, you see a problem and you just start bouncing it around in your brain. Sometimes I get up in the morning and go, nope. Like that one's gone.
Yeah.
You realize, well, there was just no validity to that argument. You moved on. But
Yeah.
I love that sort of concept of present me with one. Reasonable would give me somewhere to work.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. That's a reasonable one. Now, I disagree with it, but what made it reasonable? Because maybe through that, I can reason out a different argument against it. You never know.
Yeah.
It's, again, then there's foundational principles. Everything falls on reason. Thomas
Yeah.
Jefferson, very specifically, fix reason firmly in her seat. This seems simple to me. If I can reason everything, then everyone can reason with me.
Yeah.
That's an awesome foundation. So have a reasonable discussion. Might be totally harebrained, but if you can present it to me reasonably,
Yeah.
in a well thought out form, like, cool, you'll give me thought.
Yeah.
That's room for me to think on that and go, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So there's where that fails, where that succeeds. There's where our idea evolves to the next one because you presented something that we hadn't seen. That's that nice fun thing of arguing with people or discussing things with people is they always have an idea that there's something there that you hadn't considered.
Yeah.
It might be really, really minute, but if they're having a good conversation and an honest conversation, you'll hear that minute thing. And you can work on that later
Yeah.
on. Like if they're just, you're dumb, you're Nazi. Well, this
there's
argument's over.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? I'm not going to learn anything, and I'm going to have no room to grow because all I'm going to do is go, Jesus, you failed me.
Yeah, you're just gonna yeah. And that's one of the reasons I have such a hard time like having a political discussion at all. It's like I'm always approaching something from a philosophical standpoint,
Yeah.
and almost everything coming back at me is from an emotional standpoint, or at least not from a philosophical standpoint, and I will present it as, and I will start, here's the philosophy that I'm founding
Right.
to come to this idea. And I never really get a counter argument so much as sort of attacked or, straw man arguments, typical
Yep.
logical fallacies, just told how evil, people are. If I'm against income tax, that means I'm somehow for billionaires exploiting workers.
Oh, yeah. And-
because I'm in favor of a flat tax, I'm racist.
Yep.
All sorts of weird stuff. It's like, well, you're not changing my mind
Right.
by insulting me. If you bring me a rational philosophical argument, then we can have a thought experiment and we can,
Yeah.
it amazes me that the Socratic method
It's long gone.
is so beyond gone. It's actually like it's not known,
Yeah.
but it's criticized.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you ask me questions? And
Yeah, how dare you be reasonable?
Yeah, how dare ask me questions to try to explore my own thoughts? How dare you do that?
Well, we hit a part where everybody, for whatever reason, we're all so special that we think everything's an attack. Everything's a personal attack on my way of life, my way of thinking, my emotions, my religion, whatever it is. People really, I get it a lot too. You have that conversation. They're like, well, why would you even ask me that? Because I'm genuinely fucking curious.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand it, and I want to understand
Yeah.
it. And we've forgotten what that was like. Somebody takes it so personally, and like everything is an affront on their character. No, dude, I just don't understand. I have no point of reference, and I've had to take to phrasing things like that. Look, I don't have a point of reference, and I really don't understand what you mean. It's not anything I've experienced. My point of reference does not apply to this. Could you explain that to me so that I understand? And I feel like such a patronizing dick when I say that, but I have to, because a lot of people, and both right and left, do it. They're all firmly entrenched in their positions. Everything's an attack. So you go, okay, I've assessed a lot of things. I've never experienced this. Could you explain to me why you would think that way? And yeah, you come across I have people in my life who are, you're such an arrogant dink, and you're always talking down to people. I'm not talking down. I honestly just don't.
Yeah.
I've thought about these things a long time, and I can't wrap my head around it. So I must be missing something. I need you to explain it to me. But, if you take it personally, then I'm the dick and you're not going to explain it to me. So then I have to come across like a patronizing ass. And like, could like in layman's terms, could you dumb this down for me? Act like I'm two. But I want to understand, because I know I'm missing something. Mm-hmm. I know that John Locke was missing things. I know that Jefferson and Hamilton were missing things. We all missed something to get better at. Somebody needs to know the idea, or there's where the collective is good. The collective knowledge is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
325 million people or so in this country. There's better be somebody that's smarter than me. And there are damn sure better be people that know more about other things than what I know about.
Yeah.
I need to pick your brains. I would like to be the smartest guy in the world. I would like to be the smartest guy in the room. I can't be there unless we have a conversation about it. How do I have that conversation? Well, first off, get you to not attack me or think that I'm attacking you. And that's so freaking hard. Like, man, where did we get lost on that deal? Like, how could we have possibly forgot the art of a conversation?
Yeah.
A little bit of pragmatism. Just, I'm like, man, not everything's a big deal either. Like, sometimes it's just curiosity. Like, I just want to know crap.
Yeah.
I'm a stupid sponge. Maybe because I didn't go to school. I dropped out early. I was done with school, psychologically way before I dropped out. So I was kind of like, whatever, man. I learned to read on dictionaries. We were dirt poor. My mom didn't go to the store and buy books. The library was like 18 miles away, so you weren't going to make a trip in 1974 to go to the library. So she went to my grandpa's house. He gave her an old set of encyclopedias and a dictionary. We learned to read on those. So when we were reading on our own, my sister and I, my mom would say, okay, you need to read these 2 pages. And then she would come in at the end of that and bedtime, and she would just randomly go through those 2 pages and go, what does this word mean? To prove that you'd read it. I was intellectually curious right from the start. I was forced into that. I didn't read. I actually didn't know any of the children's nursery rhymes until recently. I have no knowledge of those
If you
things.
think about it, all kids are intellectually curious.
Yeah,
Like they're
I
all
just
little
got pushed.
scientists. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
It's fantastic.
experimenting.
Yep. So I got
that's
to
what
learn
kids
that
do.
way, and you go, man, this is great. So now it piqued that curiosity. Like I was bored in school because, well, what are you going to teach me? I have read the entire encyclopedia. I'm in 2nd grade. I'm sorry, 2 + 2, that bores me. Let's move on to something. So you kind of moved forward a little bit, and then later on in life, it was like, well, I'm lacking that now. I'm out of school. I'm bored, so I'm going to read. Okay, my eyes are bad. It's hard to read anymore, so let's talk. Let's converse. Let's learn things, because not everything's in a book either.
Yeah.
I can't learn human nature from a book. I can learn some basis for human nature, but I can't. Rational thinking, how does everybody see certain things? How even as simple as how do people experience pain? I had this conversation with my neck surgeon. Before my surgery, he was like, well, what's your pain level? I'm like, I don't know, about a 6. So they do my MRI, and he was like, no, there's no way you're a 6. So I'm like, okay, maybe a 5. He's like, no, the other way. He was like, the way these things are pinched, you shouldn't be walking. You shouldn't be able to stand up. He's like, you're in bad shape. This should be a 10 at all times. I'm like, nah, it's about a 6. So why am I at a 6 here and somebody else is at a 10? Obviously, there's a psychological aspect to this. It's not just physiological. There's a psychological aspect. I was taught to play through pain. I've severed tips of my fingers clean off, had to have them sewn back on. I've broken bones and just continued moving forward, play through the pain. How come I can do that and other people can't? And by the opposite token, I've seen people go through way worse injuries than me and act like they didn't even notice it. You're like, man, I'd at least have to shake that one off, And this dude's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's only half a limb. To be fine. So there's some mental aspect to that too. So how do I understand that? How can I become bigger, better, faster, stronger unless I find out how they can do that? Like, because they obviously have a skill that I don't have, soft skills I don't have. I laughed about that. Well, at the meet and greet that we had done for the sanctuary deal, straight up, I'm not going to remember anybody's names.
Yeah,
I know I don't have that soft skill. I took a college course in my 30s to learn that skill, and I passed it. I still can't remember anybody's names, but I passed a whole college course designed on teaching me how to remember people's names. It's not a skill that I possess, and I've never figured out how to make it work. I've reached a point now where I just don't care.
Yeah.
So like, whatever. If it's important, they'll put a name on their email or something. I'll be good. But like, I want to learn those things. I want to learn how everybody thinks those things, and how do you get to those ends? Cool. Let's have that conversation. That's fantastic. Religion, politics, whatever it is, explain to me why you feel that way. It's glorious. It makes me smarter, and it makes me ultimately a better human being and more empathetic. If I don't understand why you think the way you do, I can't empathize or even sympathize with you. If you're having a rough time of it, I'm going to look at something and go, well, whatever, it's just a bunch of crap. Well, I need to understand why that would affect you so that I can be a better citizen, a better community member, and help you. That's, so you get smarter, goofier, weirder.
Indeed. Oh, we've already done 2 hours.
Good God Almighty.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? Or?
God, not today.
I was gonna say, like, I'm getting worn out too.
I'm talked out.
End of Sundays, I'm always getting worn out. All right, let's hope it's all recorded. All right, thank you all for tuning into the Electric Church podcast. I'm gonna plug in stuff later.